the U.S. now, where President Donald Trump has said he believes that Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to accept European peacekeepers in Ukraine. Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron held talks at the White House on Monday. Macron said France aims to build a long-lasting peace and that Europe is ready to be a stronger partner to the U.S. and to step up on defense. Trump said there was progress towards ending the fighting in Ukraine.
The horrors of this gruesome and bloody war can scarcely be overestimated. Hundreds of thousands of people, Russians and Ukrainians in particular, have needlessly died. And I've spoken with both President Putin and President Zelensky. And again, a lot of good things toward peace are happening, moving it, I think, pretty quickly.
And I know that the President has expressed the desire to be a player for peace in the region. This peace must not mean a surrender of Ukraine. It must not mean a ceasefire without guarantees. This peace must allow for Ukrainian sovereignty and allow Ukraine to negotiate with other stakeholders.
All right, let's go to Benjamin Alvarez Gruber standing by in Washington. Benjamin, Trump said that he believes Putin is interested in peace. That's an assertion that most European leaders would likely disagree with. What more did Trump say about U.S.-Russia talks?
So President Trump once again avoided criticizing Vladimir Putin, so quite a difference to the comments from Macron, who shared his distrust of the Russian leader. He said that he was having talks with him, but that ended with the massacre of Bucha. Trump repeatedly said that the focus of the United States now is to achieve a ceasefire as soon as possible and ultimately a permanent peace. He also said that Ukrainian President Zelensky could travel to Washington this week or next one to seal this minerals agreement that he called very close. Trump stopped short of saying, however, that this agreement would contain explicit U.S. security guarantees that Ukraine has been asking for.
All right, the minerals agreement, a condition put by the U.S. on Ukraine for a peace deal. Benjamin, Trump said that Putin would be fine with having European peacekeepers on the ground in Ukraine. Do we know what he has in mind?
It's not clear how this would look like. Macron said that Europe was prepared to provide security guarantees to Ukraine. The French president spoke about peacekeepers in the event of a ceasefire, and Trump said that Washington is backing this idea and that Putin would accept it, even though the Russian president and senior Russian officials had previously indicated that they would not accept any Western forces in Ukraine. But it remains to be seen, one, how this European mission would actually look like, under which mandate it would work, because only a few European leaders have opened up to the possibility of actually sending boots on the ground. So it's not quite clear what the US president meant by that, saying that Putin would also agree to that idea.
Now, this meeting between Trump and Macron seemed very cordial, even friendly between the two leaders. Can we say whether they're on the same page when it comes to Europe's role in Ukraine?
I'd say friendly but firm. There was this scene in the Oval Office that was quite remarkable, where Macron fact-checked Trump on how much Europe is spending for Ukraine. It was very interesting seeing this dynamic of both of the leaders in the East Room. We were also there because they showed a friendly, relationship based on years of good ties. They also spoke about the reconstruction of the cathedral, of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, where the French president invited Donald Trump, and where they also had a meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky when Trump was still the president-elect. So they showed that there was some friendship and also the words of Macron in a very, very polite way, but also made clear where he disagrees with Trump on some really key issues regarding the war in Ukraine. And these key issues couldn't have been clearer today on the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There have been many discussions in New York, and both countries, France and the United States, were at loggerheads over a resolution resolutions describing Russia as the aggressor in the war. We've seen quite a shift from the White House on that, on the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So exactly 1 year ago, the US UN mission spoke about Russia and I quote, illegal, unprovoked and brutal full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, they only called it an escalation of the Russia-Ukraine war. So quite a change in position that has led to a lot of criticism.
All right, DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber in Washington on those talks between Trump and Macron. Thank you. Doug Klain joins me from the Atlantic Council. Doug, welcome. Macron says that he sees a path forward after these talks with Trump. Do you see anything positive coming out of this meeting for Europe, for Ukraine?
Well, we're speaking almost exactly 3 years and 1 day after Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine and launched this full-scale invasion. And I think that after watching this meeting today between French President Macron and U.S. President Trump, it's a reminder that this moment is about hard power, military might, and the political will to use it. What Macron brought to Washington this week was real political will from Europe, will that has been lacking and that Trump and the U.S. have exploited. Macron and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is coming later this week, have both come out and said that they would be willing to send soldiers to Ukraine in some kind of peacekeeping capacity. And this gives them leverage with Trump. It gives them leverage to say to the U.S., you can't walk away from Europe. You still have a role to play. We'll step up and do our part. You have to do yours. And I think that Macron was able to deliver that message to Trump in a strong way today.
To this point, Europe hasn't had a seat at the table in these talks between the U.S. and Russia. Neither has Ukraine, for that matter. Do you see that changing?
I think it's too soon to say. Europe, including Ukraine, have not yet had a real seat at the table. From everything we've seen from Trump and his team so far, I think that they are signaling that they see Ukraine, not Russia, as the obstacle to peace here. They see Putin as a willing partner. Trump seems to believe Putin when he says that Russia wants peace, that Putin wants peace. And we've seen the U.S. trying to negotiate with Ukraine, with Europe more, trying to figure out how to coerce them into a deal, coerce them into some kind of a settlement. We haven't seen as much pressure on Russia. And so it's an important step, I think, today, having Macron come and say that there must be security guarantees for Ukraine, that Europe will have to play a leading role in those kinds of security guarantees. It opens up the possibilities when it comes to European options for playing a role in some kind of negotiated peace. They have to bring something to the table, something new in Trump's eyes that they haven't brought before.
Trump has been relaying Putin's comments in private conversations between the two. To what extent are we sure what Putin is actually saying, and to what extent he will allow something like peacekeepers in Russia, or in Ukraine, I should say?
Yeah, if Trump was accurately relaying what he had heard from Putin, if Putin really did say that he would have no problem with foreign troops, with European troops in Ukraine, that would be a remarkable shift. For years, one of Russia's primary objections has been foreign Western and European troops in Ukraine. They have objected in particular to not so much the idea of political membership for Ukraine in organizations like NATO, but most specifically on the infrastructure of NATO being in Ukraine, talking about military forces, about for example, nuclear weapons is one thing that the Russians like to say. Now, of course, none of these things have ever been on the table. None of these things have ever seriously been talked about until now, when Europeans are saying we could send troops, although they are being very clear. They're not talking about sending troops to fight in Ukraine, but to enforce a peace, to make sure that the war stops and stays over.
All right, that's Doug Klain with the Atlantic Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.